journey back to Earth was taking longer than last time. Horace T. Fiddlesworth fidgeted in his seat, replaying the last moments of his so-called simple lunch work break with his alien boss on an intergalactic space station. Let's just say it involves scented oils, and your body being licked from your overly keen alien boss, lashing from a whip, harsh gladiator training, while being enslaved with an electric collar, forced into cage combat to the death. Not what Horace quite had in mind, although his mind seemed to wander back to the licking and scented oils part, more often than he could control. Things only got weirder when Zalarian followed him back to Earth. Unbeknownst to Horace, Zalarian had developed what could only be described as a full-on interspecies crush, manifesting in the most Zalarian way possible, by persistently stalking him. Horace first noticed something was wrong when he saw a 7-foot-tall, unusually large pigeon trying to blend in at the bus stop. Its talons barely fit on the bench, and it kept looking at him with a familiar intensity. "Wait a minute," Horace muttered, squinting. He stepped closer, and the pigeon abruptly transformed into a very awkward-looking human woman, dressed like she was cosplaying at an alien convention. The sudden metamorphosis nearly caused him to drop his reusable lunch container. "Zalarian," Horace sputtered. "Shh, it's me. I'm in disguise," she hissed proudly. "Humans don't notice a thing." "But you just pigeon!" Horace gestured wildly before clutching his forehead. "Oh no, oh no, oh no!" He raced to his office at the tech company where he now worked, Earthbound Solutions, Inc. It was a place full of mundane engineers who, much to his frustration, refused to acknowledge the danger they were all in. At his next team meeting, Horace stood up, gripping the sides of the conference table as though bracing for impact. "Guys, we need to talk," he began, his voice taut. "There's an alien, my ex-boss actually, who's stalking me and trying to recruit people for her gladiator arena. I'm talking cage fights. Aliens, on Earth. This is not a drill." His boss, Greg from HR, blinked at him and then chuckled. "Ha! That's a good one, Fiddlesworth. Alien Gladiator Arena, classic. Maybe you should submit that as a skit for the company retreat." Horace's eye twitched. "I'm serious, Greg. She's following me. She's hiding in plain sight. She was a pigeon 10 minutes ago." Greg waved him off. "You're a funny guy, Horace. Don't forget to turn in those reports by Friday." Things came to a head one Saturday morning when Horace, clutching a cup of perfectly brewed coffee, looked out his window to see his neighbor, Mrs. Crumpleton, pruning her roses. Except it wasn't Mrs. Crumpleton, it was Zalarian, and she was terrible at pruning. "Zalarian!" he shouted, spilling his coffee as he raced outside. "You can't just disguise yourself as my neighbor." Zalarian waved a claw dismissively, still pretending to trim roses with all the grace of a rampaging war beast. "No one will suspect a thing. I've already been invited to the neighborhood barbecue." Horace's face paled. "This has gone too far," he whispered. "You've infiltrated suburban Earth." Zalarian finally turned to him, her alien form flickering for a brief second. "Fiddlesworth, why do you resist this so much? You're brave, resourceful. You could lead the Earth team in my arena. And you know, you're, she shifted awkwardly. You're pleasing to look at." "Wait, what?" "Join my arena. We'll fight side by side and conquer. Maybe after the battle we can, I don't know, share some beverages or whatever it is you humans do." Zalarian's enthusiasm was unnerving. Horace's mouth opened and closed like a malfunctioning robot. "I need to recalibrate my life." Horace's desperate attempts to warn others continued to fall flat. Every meeting, every phone call, every email was met with laughter, shoulder pats, and suggestions to take a vacation. No one believed him. But his OCD wouldn't let him rest. He reorganized his spice rack 3 times, paced around his meticulously clean apartment, and wondered how he, a man who spent his life avoiding chaos, was now being stalked by a gladiator-obsessed alien with a crush. One night as he hid in his living room, lights off, he heard a familiar, unnervingly chipper voice outside the window. "Fiddlesworth, I've brought you a gift," Zalarian shouted. She held up what appeared to be an alien battle axe wrapped in a giant bow. Horace sighed, pulling the curtains closed and muttering to himself, "This is my life now. I'm going to die in an intergalactic gladiator arena. Or worse, on a date." Horace sat in the dimly lit confines of his living room, every blind pulled tight, his microwave meticulously cleaned, and his silverware drawer organized by weight. His mind raced, trying to figure out how to get rid of Zilarian. She'd been lurking around Earth for weeks now, showing up as everything from a post office clerk to a pigeon, all in the name of wooing him, by Xylarian standards at least. He couldn't take it anymore. "Think, Fiddlesworth, there has to be something," he muttered, pacing back and forth, his footsteps an even number of steps between each corner of the room. His life was like one giant cosmic joke now, and he was the punchline. Then inspiration struck. During his time working at the Intergalactic Space Station X-32, he had overheard rumors about an obscure alien protocol, a kind of universal restraining order that could only be issued by the Galactic Peace Tribunal. The protocol, if activated, would force any alien to retreat back to their home planet and cease contact with the individual forever. Horace rummaged through his perfectly labeled filing cabinet, pulling out a dusty manual he'd swiped from the station's database. Intergalactic Employee Relations Policies. If it was in here, he'd find it. Flipping through pages with the precision of a man on a mission, Horace finally found it. Section 347B, Unwanted Alien Courtship and Gladiatorial Coercion Protocols. He grinned to himself, the first smile he'd cracked in days. "Xylarian, you are so done." But of course this wasn't going to be easy. To invoke the restraining protocol, Horace had to gather evidence of Xylarian's unwanted attention and file a formal complaint with the Galactic Peace Tribunal. The problem? He needed to prove Xylarian's persistence, and that meant getting her to admit, on record, what her intentions were. Horace cringed at the thought. This was like some kind of intergalactic HR nightmare. Later that night, after triple-checking that all his escape routes were clear, Horace texted Xylarian using the alien communicator she'd left on his doorstep, because apparently aliens don't just use WhatsApp, Instagram, or Facebook. "Horace, meet me tomorrow at the park. We need to talk." Xylarian, "Does this mean you've accepted my proposal to join the arena?" Horace, "Let's just say it's under consideration." He shuddered at his own words, but knew it was the only way. The next day, Horace showed up at the park, clutching a small recorder device he'd hidden inside his jacket. He spotted Xylarian by the swings, disguised as an oddly tall jogger doing stretches in a particular way. At least she was trying, he thought. "Fiddlesworth," she exclaimed, shifting back into her human disguise as she bounded over, her enthusiasm more terrifying than endearing. "Xylarian, I need to ask you a few things," Horace said, his voice strained. He was sweating bullets, but he had to remain calm. "I need you to clarify your intentions toward me." Xylarian tilted her head, her three eyes briefly shimmering through her human disguise before she reset her form. "My intentions? Isn't it obvious? I want you to fight by my side in the arena, and maybe—" She trailed off awkwardly, her expression suggesting this was uncharted territory for her. "Possibly engage in romantic partnership?" Horace felt a pit in his stomach, but held the recorder steady. "But why me? There are so many capable gladiators," he added, keeping his tone even. "Why are you so set on, well, me?" Xylarian straightened her posture, pride swelling in her voice. "Because, Fiddlesworth, you are clever, resourceful, and, how do humans put it, stubborn. That is a valuable trait in battle. Plus," she glanced away almost embarrassed, "you are the only one who didn't immediately run when I proposed joining the arena. And I admire your organization skills. It's efficient." "I respect that." Horace blinked. That last part was oddly touching in the most terrifying way possible. But more importantly, he had what he needed. Clear admission of her unwanted advances in battle recruitment. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "I see," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Well, that's flattering. But I think it's time I go back to being just an engineer. You understand, right?" Xylarian frowned, her expression conflicted. "But we could be great together. You would be feared across galaxies. People would chant your name in the arena. Fiddlesworth, Fiddlesworth. Doesn't that excite you?" It's not really my thing, Horace said, backing up slightly. But don't worry. I've got plans of my own. You can't keep doing this to me. I need my space, lady. I have work to do, things to fix, quantum strings to pluck, so get plucked and pluck off. With that, he excused himself and bolted. He sprinted to his apartment faster than he ever thought his legs could move. Back home, he uploaded the recording and filled out the alien HR forms as fast as his fingers would allow. 2 days later, Horace received an official communication. The Galactic Peace Tribunal had reviewed his case and issued an immediate restraining protocol. Xylurian was legally barred from coming within a galaxy of him, effective immediately. He sighed with relief, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. It was finally over. The next morning, Horace sat by his window, sipping a meticulously brewed cup of coffee, reveling in the quiet. He gazed out at the peaceful suburban street and smiled, no longer scanning for oversized pigeons or shape-shifting neighbors. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over his front door. His heart raced. The doorbell rang. He cautiously opened the door to reveal a small, floating drone with an envelope attached. On behalf of the Galactic Peace Tribunal, a robotic voice intoned, you have been granted a one-time lifetime exemption from all future gladiator challenges. Horace exhaled. Thank you, he muttered to the drone. As the drone flew off, he unfolded the letter inside the envelope. It was written in Zalarian's familiar jagged script. Dear Fiddlesworth, I respect your decision. You are an honorable foe, even if you choose the path of peace. I will remember you. Zalarian, the undefeated gladiator, and occasionally a pigeon. Horace couldn't help but laugh. Finally, peace, or so he hoped. Horace had finally begun to settle into what he considered normal life. It had been weeks since Xylurian was legally forced to stay far, far away from him. His apartment was immaculate, his work routine calming, and there were no strange encounters with pigeons or human-shaped aliens lurking around corners. He almost allowed himself to believe that this strange chapter of his life had come to a close. That was until he received a notification from his old contacts at the Intergalactic Space Station X-32. Horace stared at the message in disbelief. The space station had been decommissioned, and not just that, all employees had been reassigned. Most curiously, his ex-boss, Xylurian, had been fired. The notice ominously added that her whereabouts were currently unknown. His heart sank. If Xylurian wasn't on the station, who knew where she was now? He tried to push it from his mind. After all, the Galactic Peace Tribunal restraining order was still in place. Xylurian couldn't come near him, right? Later that evening, Horace came home from work, exhausted but comforted by the thought of a quiet night filled with his favorite hobby, reorganizing his tool bench for the 5th time this week. But as he rounded the corner to his porch, he froze. There, sitting on the steps, was a girl. No, not just a girl. She was gorgeous, like she'd stepped straight out of an airbrushed fantasy. Her long, flowing hair shimmered under the fading sunlight, and her eyes sparkled like distant stars. She was dressed in simple, elegant clothing, but even that seemed to radiate beauty. Her presence was almost unnaturally perfect. Horace's first instinct was suspicion. He slowed his pace as he cautiously approached, his engineering brain kicking into overdrive. Beautiful strangers didn't just sit on your porch without reason, and certainly not this beautiful. Can I help you? Horace asked, his hand tightening on the strap of his bag. The girl stood up gracefully, smiling warmly at him. Horace T. Fiddlesworth? His stomach churned. Yes? My name is Lyra. I've been sent by Xylurian as a gift. Horace blinked several times, processing her words. A gift? Yes, she said, tilting her head. Xylurian felt she owed you something after all the trouble she caused. She wanted to make amends. Horace's heart raced. He didn't know what to focus on first, the fact that Xylurian had somehow found a way to get around the restraining protocol, or the fact that this mysterious, impossibly beautiful woman was standing on his porch claiming to be a gift. Hold on, he said, stepping back and eyeing her warily. Xylurian is not exactly known for making amends in normal ways. Are you real? Could I be this lucky? Lyra nodded. I am very real, and I have no intention of fighting you in any gladiatorial arena, if that's what you're worried about. And besides, I have nowhere else to be. Horace sighed, rubbing his temples. Okay, so let me get this straight. Zalarian, my former boss and arena-loving stalker, sent you to, what, apologize? How exactly are you supposed to be a gift? Lyra's smile was warm, but there was a slight tension in her expression, as if she too was grappling with the oddness of the situation. I'm here to help you. Be whatever you need. Xylarian said I should make your life easier after the chaos she caused. Horace squinted, his skepticism deepening. Easier? How? Are you going to do my laundry or something? Lyra blinked, clearly confused by the question. I could if that's what you want, but I think Xylarian had more companionship in mind. You know, the good type of bed fun? Companionship. Horace felt his skin crawl. This was Xylarian's doing all right. In her bizarre alien mind, this was the logical next step to apologizing. She couldn't get close to him anymore, so she sent someone else. Okay, no, Horace said, shaking his head vigorously. You're not some gift I can just accept like a fruit basket. This is deeply weird. Lyra's face fell slightly and Horace immediately felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't asked for this after all. He sighed and rubbed his forehead again. Look, I'm sure you're a very nice person, but this isn't how things work on Earth. You can't just send people to be companions or, whatever this, is. Horace's mind starting to take over with intrusive thoughts. Lyra tilted her head again, trying to understand. So you don't want me? It's not that, Horace said, feeling like this conversation was rapidly spiraling into awkward territory. It's just weird and probably unethical. Lyra frowned slightly but nodded. I see. I wasn't given many instructions, just that I was to help you however you needed. I am very good at polishing any knobs that you might have. Horace let out a deep breath. Okay, wow, really? Is that what you're good at? Look, we'll figure this out then. But first, let's get inside before the neighbors start asking why there's a supermodel sitting on my porch. He led Lyra into his meticulously clean apartment, where she immediately marveled at how organized everything was. You're very precise, she observed, running her fingers along his alphabetically arranged books. Yeah, I'm an engineer, Horace replied absently, still trying to wrap his head around the situation. Now, we need to figure out what to do with you. Do you have any alien paperwork or something? Like, can I return you? Lyra chuckled softly, sitting down on his couch. I don't think Xylarian intended for me to be returned, Horace groaned, sinking into a chair opposite her. Of course she didn't, but I like your skill set, though. As the days went on, Lyra stayed. It wasn't like she had anywhere else to go, and despite the oddness of it all, she turned out to be helpful. She was endlessly kind and eager to assist him with anything, fixing broken appliances, preparing meals, and even offering surprisingly insightful advice on complex engineering problems. But the unease never left Horace. While Lyra was pleasant and harmless, she was a constant reminder that Xylarian was still out there, her intentions still inscrutable. One evening, as they sat quietly in the living room, Lyra spoke up. Horace, I don't want to be a burden to you. If you want me to leave, I will. I don't want you to feel like I'm another part of Xylarian's meddling. Horace paused, considering her words. Despite everything, he didn't dislike her. She wasn't like Xylarian. There was no pressure, no intensity. She was just there. And oddly, he had started to get used to it. No, Lyra, it's not that. I don't mind you being here, he admitted. It's just complicated. I'm not used to, well, any of this, and I do like the way you polish my knobs. They have not been this clean in ages. Lyra smiled softly, and for the first time, Horace felt a genuine sense of calm. Maybe this wasn't so bad after all. Xylarian's gift was bizarre, sure, but maybe it was her strange way of making amends. Of course, knowing Xylarian, there was always the chance this was just the beginning of something far more chaotic. But for now, this was nice, and maybe, just maybe, he could finally relax.